At the investor pitch, my colleague stood up and said, "This data is clearly manipulated," then filed a patent on my work with reduced results to make me look like a fraud. I lost my lab, my reputation, everything I built, until I exposed her live in front of the board. At the investor summit in Rochester, Minnesota, I watched my life catch fire. A boardroom full of potential backers, eyes pinned to the glowing screen behind me. My voice is calm, steady, months of research distilled into 20 minutes. This pitch is everything. It could bring regenerative medicine into a new era. That's when she does it. "This data's been tampered with," my colleague Blair says loudly, standing mid-presentation. She doesn't look at me, she looks at them. The silence is brutal. Blair's voice is drenched in fake concern. "I've reviewed the figures. They're inflated by at least 40%. The regeneration rates being shown simply aren't biologically feasible with our current protocol." My heart sinks, my skin flushes cold. Every number in that deck was mine. 18 months of testing, verification, sleepless nights. I stare at her. "That's a serious accusation," I say, gripping the podium, forcing my voice not to shake. Blair tilts her head with that smug, rehearsed sympathy. "I'm sorry, but we can't mislead our investors. This isn't personal, it's about scientific integrity." Mrs. Fallon, the lead investor, narrows her eyes at both of us. She's been in pharma for 3 decades and doesn't suffer fools. "Actually," she says, "can we speak with her alone?" Blair freezes. "I think I should stay." Mrs. Fallon doesn't blink. "That wasn't a suggestion, out." Now, the room clears in seconds. Blair shoots me a look, part warning, part victory. When the door closes, it's just me, 7 investors, and the pressure boiling in my chest. "Walk us through your methodology," Mrs. Fallon says. I do, in painful detail. I pull up raw data, logs, testing iterations. I explain how I adapted mitochondrial pathways to increase protein synthesis. I show my timestamps, protocols, and the verification steps. Mr. Barrett, a tech investor who rarely speaks, finally leans forward. "These server logs," he says, tapping his tablet. "Your colleague accessed your files constantly over the last 6 weeks, usually right after major updates. She said she was verifying my work. Did she ever suggest changes?" "No," Mrs. Fallon looks up sharply. "Show us your patent filing." "I haven't submitted it yet. I was waiting for this meeting." Mr. Barrett turns his tablet to me. "Then explain this." A patent filing appears. My exact process, word for word, only the metrics are conveniently 40% lower. The listed inventor. Blair Reynolds. My chest caves in, my throat locks. "She didn't just accuse me," I whisper. "She stole my work, then made it look like I was the one lying." "We need to speak with Miss Reynolds again," Mrs. Fallon says. Blair re-enters with her signature poise until she sees their faces. Mrs. Fallon doesn't give her a second to recover. "We've reviewed the patent you submitted," she says coolly. Identical to what we just saw, except conveniently undercut. Either her numbers are fake, which makes your patent fraudulent, or her results are valid and you stole her work. "Which is it?" Blair falters. "There's clearly been a miscommunica," Mr. Barrett interrupts. "You accessed her files 27 times, always within 12 hours of updates." And then it happens. Blair's eyes find mine and I see it. Recognition, horror. The moment she realizes, I knew, I watched her steal it, I let her build her own trap. "You knew," she breathes. The room goes dead quiet. She's escorted out, silently. I sign the provisional investment papers that afternoon. My hands are steady, but my heart is already bracing for the next phase because I know Blair Reynolds isn't done. And neither am I if you're hooked. Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next chapter. But let me ask, have you ever worked with someone who tried to sabotage you behind your back? Drop your story in the comments. My name's Rowan Maddox. Before Blair tried to burn down my career, I was a postdoctoral researcher focused on regenerative tissue engineering. Nerve regrowth, scarless healing, tissue restoration, miracles, but all theoretical. Until a startup in Rochester called Cura Thrive recruited me to turn theory into treatment. There were only 30 employees and the place thrummed with energy. Big promises, big pressure. The founder, Caleb Rowe, was a reclusive genius rarely seen outside his private lab. But the company's real power. Blair Reynolds, operations director, she ran everything except the science. My first day, she gave me the tour. "The science doesn't sell itself," she said over boxed sushi. I make it digestible. That's how we survive. She had an elegant way of making herself essential. Blair wasn't loud or flashy, she was surgical. She knew everyone's weakness and played them like strings. People jumped when she entered a room. But I didn't realize they jumped away from her. I should have seen it then. I asked a chemist named Dev what happened to the last researcher in my position. His eyes darted away. Clara had a breakthrough, presented it. Then boom, questions about her data. She left 2 weeks later. Who raised the concerns? He just said, take care of your work backups, and walked off. I shrugged it off. Paranoia, maybe. I wasn't Clara. I documented everything. My method had promise, reducing tissue regeneration time by 70% using redirected mitochondrial energy. Less pain, faster healing, and lower costs. Blair seemed thrilled. You might actually change the game, she told me after a demo. Keep going like this and you'll be department head by spring. I wanted to believe her, but then came the delays. Meetings got mysteriously rescheduled. Equipment I needed was always checked out. Blair asked for all my raw files, reasonable, I thought, for a senior review. Then I saw the patterns. Every time I uploaded something significant, she accessed it within hours. Every file. Every update. She never gave feedback, just watched. 2 weeks before the investor summit, she sat me down. We need all your iteration logs, every test, every variable, full transparency before we pitch. I gave her everything. But that day, I also installed a private digital tracker. Unnoticeable, silent. It logged every file access, every IP, every timestamp. What I saw confirmed everything. Blair had been dissecting my methodology for weeks. Comparing variables, copying diagrams. She was constructing a parallel version of my research, one with slightly different numbers. Then 3 days before the presentation, I found it, a draft patent application. My entire innovation, slightly nerfed with her name as the sole inventor. That's when the full horror of her plan clicked into place. She was going to let me present the real, game-changing numbers, then stand up, pretend to be the voice of reason, and accuse me of fraud. And just like Clara, just like probably others, I'd be gone. My work would stay, just with a different name. I had 24 hours to decide what to do, expose her, pull my presentation, go to Caleb. Instead, I let her hang herself. I changed nothing. Stayed quiet, acted naive. But I upgraded my tracking system. Every access, download, and file change was now mirrored to an encrypted cloud I controlled. The morning of the pitch, she came by my desk. Nervous? She asked, placing a hand on my shoulder. A little, I said. Don't be, just stick to the facts. Her eyes twinkled. She had no idea I'd seen her trap. She had no idea I'd turned it into a cage. And you already know what happened in that room. But you don't know what came next. Blair didn't vanish. She just regrouped. The morning after the pitch, the office buzzed with whispers. Blair had been escorted out, but her shadow lingered. Maybe it was all a misunderstanding, someone mumbled outside the break room. She's been here since the beginning, another said. Blair Reynolds had allies, deep ones. The founder, Caleb Rowe, called me to his office that afternoon. I'd spoken to him maybe twice before. Now I was summoned like a student before the principal. His office was sterile, white walls, no photos, no plants, just silence. Explain what happened, he said without greeting. So I did, the research, the sabotage, the patent, the ambush. He listened without a single reaction, just stared. Then finally, why didn't you tell me when you discovered the patent? Would you have believed me over Blair? He didn't answer. That was the answer. The investors are still interested in your work, he said. Prove it. Make the results reproducible. Everything else is noise. Then he added, coldly, don't imagine this makes you untouchable. Everyone's replaceable. I left his office knowing the truth. Caleb didn't care who was right. He cared about results. He'd use me as long as my research delivered. And Blair wasn't done. 3 days later, I got a text from an unknown number. Coffee? We should talk. I should have deleted it. Instead, I met her. The cafe was empty. She was waiting in the corner, sipping tea, looking far too composed for someone who just detonated her career. Thank you for coming, she said, like we were friends catching up. What do you want? She studied me, amused. You knew what I was doing, and you let me walk into it. Why? Because if I confronted you, you'd lie. If I told Caleb, you'd twist it. I needed you to do it yourself. She nodded. Smart, ruthless, I underestimated you. Then she leaned in. You know this wasn't my first time, right? She listed them. Clara, Amir, Jonas. All of them had breakthroughs, all of them pushed out. Each time I got a little better at making their research look like mine. My throat tightened. Why are you telling me this? Because you're different, you didn't just survive. You outplayed me, that's rare. Then she dropped the real bomb. I'm offering you a partnership. I laughed, stunned. You stole my work, you tried to ruin me. She didn't flinch. Your research, my network, investors are still divided. Caleb resents the attention. Half the board still trusts me. She leaned in closer. I still have your complete methodology. With my connections, we launch a new firm. Split everything 50-50. My hands clenched under the table. And if I say no, her smile thinned. Then we both lose. There are aspects of your research that wouldn't survive full scrutiny. Protocols you bent, efficiency shortcuts, nothing fatal but enough to raise eyebrows. My stomach dropped. She wasn't bluffing. She'd seen my private notes taken during testing. Minor deviations, harmless but unreported. You're threatening me. I'm offering perspective. I have nothing left to lose. You have everything. I stood up. I'll think about it, I said. Good, she said. You've got 48 hours. After that, I proceed. I walked home instead of taking the bus. My mind was already spinning. She wasn't just a thief, she was a predator, systematic, efficient. And worst of all, protected. Caleb wouldn't help me. The board was divided. The investors were watching. I had one shot. That night, I pulled every log, every access timestamp, every record of file modifications. Then I tracked down Clara, Amir, and Jonas. I drafted emails. Detailed, desperate, honest, I told them everything. The next morning, I got another text from Blair. Tick-tock, have you decided? I ignored it. And walked straight into the office of Mrs. Fallon, the lead investor. What I told her changed everything. Mrs. Fallon's office sat on the top floor of a tower overlooking the Mississippi River. Her walls weren't blank like Caleb's. They were lined with photos from clinical trials, awards, handshakes with Nobel winners. This was a woman who understood power and science. This is unusual, she said, gesturing for me to sit. We don't normally take private meetings with researchers. I'm not here about the company, I said. I'm here about Blair Reynolds. I laid it all out. The theft, the false accusations, the pattern, and the threat. Mrs. Fallon didn't react. She just listened, like a surgeon preparing for the first cut. When I finished, she said, "What exactly do you want?" "Protection, a chance to finish my work, and credit for it." She studied me for a long moment. Blair's the reason we invested, not the science, her ability to package it, pitch it, spot winners. I didn't flinch. She spotted me, then tried to bury me. She stood, walked to the window. "How many others?" she asked. "At least 3. Clara, Amir, Jonas." "I've reached out." "Bring me proof," she said. "Testimony, logs, anything that shows a pattern." "I have some already, I'll get the rest." She turned back to me. "Be careful. Blair didn't get where she is by being sloppy. If she realizes you're building a case..." She didn't finish. She didn't have to. When I got home that night, something was off. My apartment door was cracked open. Keys clenched in my fist, I stepped in. The lights were off. Cabinet doors hung open, papers everywhere. My laptop was gone. Then I heard it, a drawer shutting in the bedroom. Someone was still here. I froze, heart hammering. Before I could react, a man stepped into the hallway. Not Blair. Someone I'd never seen. Buzz-cut, stone-faced. He held my external hard drive in one hand. "Put that down," I said. He pocketed it. "Miss Reynolds sends her regards," he said. "She said you'd understand." "You're breaking the law," he walked past me. "Smart decision," he said, pausing at the door. "She also said your 48 hours are up. She'll be proceeding accordingly." Then he vanished. I called the police. But there was nothing they could do. No proof, no fingerprints, just a clean theft, perfectly timed. The next morning, things got worse. 6 researchers were already standing around my workstation when I arrived. Tad stepped out from behind them, his face cold. "Allegations have been raised regarding your testing protocols," he said. "Data inconsistencies, contaminated control samples, procedural manipulation." My mouth went dry. "She used the stolen files," I whispered. "Until the review is complete, your lab access is suspended," he said. Just like that, everything I'd fought to protect was gone. Again. But this time, I had allies. Over the next 3 days, I met with Clara, Amir, and Jonas, virtually or in person. All of them had stories, logs, notes, flash drives. Clara handed me one over tea. I documented everything after she pushed me out, she said. Didn't think it would matter, but here we are. Each story was nearly identical. Blair cozying up, asking questions, delaying presentations. Then boom, doubts raised, careers shattered, patents filed. We compiled everything into a single dossier. Patterns, timestamps, testimonies, not just sabotage, a strategy. Late one night, I got the call. Mrs. Fallen's voice was sharp. My office, 8 a.m. Bring what you've compiled. This changes everything. I walked into the boardroom at 7:45 a.m., dossier clutched tight. Mrs. Fallen was already there, with Mr. Barrett, another investor, and a woman in a navy suit whose presence screamed lawyer. This is Miss Vance, Mrs. Fallen said. She represents our legal interests. I nodded. My pulse thudded behind my eyes. Before I could speak, Mrs. Fallen added, We've been conducting our own investigation, and what we found is worse than we imagined. Miss Vance opened a folder. For the past 4 years, she said, Blair Reynolds received undisclosed consulting payments from 3 rival biotech firms. I blinked. She wasn't just stealing research, Mrs. Fallen said. She was selling it. Your stolen protocols appeared in competitor development pipelines, months after key file access events. My throat tightened. She also registered patents through shell companies, Miss Vance added, monetizing stolen work and routing payouts to offshore accounts. Mrs. Fallen fixed her gaze on me. But to take legal action, we need clear, documented proof of her pattern. I placed the tablet on the table. Then this is what you need. I walked them through it all, Clara's logs, Amir's emails, Jonas's server footage. Time-stamped access, repeated sabotage, nearly identical manipulation strategies. When I finished, Mrs. Fallen leaned back. This is ironclad, she said. We'll move forward immediately. Is my research review suspended? She smiled. Effective immediately, your lab is reinstated. You'll also serve as interim research director. My breath caught. After all of it, vindication. And Blair? I asked. She nodded. Leave her to us. The next morning, I received a company-wide meeting invite. Boardroom, 10 o'clock a.m. Attendance mandatory. I walked in to find the entire company packed shoulder to shoulder. Research, admin, leadership, the board. And at the far end of the table, Blair Reynolds. She looked perfectly composed, pressed suit, calm expression. Until the first slide hit the screen. A 4-year timeline, names, departures, patent dates, rival launches. As of today, Mrs. Fallen announced, Cura Thrive has evidence that proprietary research has been systematically stolen and resold. Blair stiffened. These are not accusations. These are facts. We have server logs, witness testimony, and financial trails. Slide after slide, screenshots, patent filings, forensic audits, Clara's email, Jonas's file access records, Amir's missing backups. Then the clincher, the shell companies. The money trail, Blair's face drained of color. Miss Vance stepped forward. The board has voted unanimously to terminate your employment, effective immediately. Charges have been filed for corporate espionage, wire fraud, and intellectual property theft. Security flanked her. Blair rose slowly, still clutching her bag, but her eyes found mine. You orchestrated this, she whispered as she passed. I met her gaze. Steady, calm. No, Blair, you did. I just documented it. She was walked out in silence. No one defended her. 3 months later, Cura Thrive was thriving. My regeneration therapy entered clinical trials. Clara, Amir, and Jonas were publicly credited for their contributions and received financial settlements. The culture changed overnight. No more secrets, no more sabotage. As for Blair, she stood trial. Her shell companies were dismantled, her licenses revoked. Her name now synonymous with biotech fraud. But what sticks with me most? Not her fall, her final mistake. She taught me how to trap someone so thoroughly that not even she could escape it. Her greatest weapon was the blueprint of her own downfall, and I used every step of it. If you've made it this far in my story, take a second to like and subscribe. Because revenge isn't always about rage. Sometimes it's quiet, patient, icy, it builds and waits, just like I did.